Hey, friends, welcome back to the things we know. Today, we want to talk about something that feels urgent, but not in a stressful way. But it's more in a like, let's not miss it kind of way. And that is about living life to the fullest. And what does that even mean, right? Like, how do we do it when life feels heavy or busy? Or how do we do it when we just have a lot on our plate? How do you actually say, yeah, I'm living life to the fullest, no matter what I have going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about like squeezing in everything or living up to some perfect sort of social media version of what you think your life is supposed to be like or what a full life looks like. Um, for me, it is about just feeling sort of joyful and alive and connected. Um, Even in these days when everything feels like it's going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, I just, um, you know, eh, if you follow either one of us or the pod, I mean, I try to keep the pod a little more lighthearted, but it's very easy to feel hopeless right now. I keep saying I feel hopeless, and in that I have freedom, and that's a whole other pod episode probably, but um, it struck me on the night after the election, actually, so November 6th, and I was really in the depths of despair of what we're looking down the barrel of, and literally just ready to throw all of this to the wolves, the pod
Hmm.
included. Like, I just could not figure out how this made sense in that moment.
Hmm.
And Darren said in that moment, "Oh, I hate to see your light go out,"
Hmm.
which was like striking. Darren doesn't talk like that really. And so when he said that, and it was with such compassion and, because it was interesting because he was trying to do it from a place of like, it'll be, this will happen. And I was like, dude, you are a white man. Like, you do not understand what I'm feeling right now. So it was lovely. Um, but I just realized, okay, like I need to figure out how to choose to want to keep moving forward. And it took a little bit, but when I got there again, my son sort of reflected. I know your kids have as well, like reflected, like, oh, thank God, because what you
Hmm.
and Carrie are bringing out to the world is so important now. Being a
Yeah.
creator is so important now.
I was just thinking too, and even if you aren't feeling that way about the world, I don't, maybe you're happy about things are, but there's other ways you might not be living fully. I think there's a lot of ways that life gets really busy. We live in such energy sucking time with everything coming at us 24/7. And it's hard to live life fully, right? So like what brought this up for us, which I think I sent to you very emotionally. I may have mentioned here, I don't know, but this fall, my family lost my nephew, my 28-year-old nephew. And there's so much about the way he lived his life and the ways we've been celebrating him, and even just so much about the way he was living his life to the fullest. And that sounds odd because people will be like, oh, that's so tragic. Yes, it's tragic. He was just shy of his 29th birthday, but and not but. However, he was also visiting his 86th country when he
That's
passed away.
amazing.
And one of his former teachers, and also like there's so much I could get into, and I'll share a little bit here about like what's relevant and why he inspired me to want to talk more about this myself. But one of the like many teachers from every parts of his life, because he really just stood out as somebody who just from day one was so curious and just wanted to, like he really did live, like he's one of, we talk here a lot about limited beliefs. I've been reflecting, he's probably the only human I've ever met without any. Like
Wow.
really just never, there wasn't anything he didn't believe he couldn't do. That doesn't mean he succeeded at everything. He was freaking good at everything, and it drives us crazy. Everything. He can sing, he was really good at sports, he was freaking smart. I mean, he just was really good. He's a phenomenal photographer, but he just didn't believe there was anything he couldn't do. So that's a big piece of it, right? Like
Yeah.
if you can believe it, you can live fully, no matter what you're doing. But one of his teachers or like former counselors said something like what this taught her was, you could you can have a long life in 28 years if you live like Stephen.
Mm,
Because
wow.
yeah, he lived bold, curious, and just so beautifully human. He was so real. He was super funny and self-deprecating and open. And he didn't ever let fear or anyone's expectations hold him back. And it was just really inspiring. And um, one of it, like all of his siblings spoke at his memorial service, which was really inspiring. One of my nephews said, like in every conversation or in most conversations, Stephen would always say, why not? To anything that like came up, right? And anything that was blocking a desire. Like, why not take that trip? Why not go for your dream job? Why not connect with someone new? Why not chase your big desires? Why not try something? Right. And that's such a like confronting thing for people who are kind of like to take their time or be comfortable. And we know we coach so many people like that. I can go through periods like that. I can get really comfortable. So the why not is always just like the best confrontation to have in your wheelhouse, whether it's from yourself or from somebody like that. Um, and also the thing I think I texted you about was his other brother said he used to think it was ridiculous, but now he realizes when Steven said he wanted to live life deliciously, live deliciously, like he did.
Yeah.
He really did. And that's what we want to dig into.
Before we go a little further, I just have a question. I don't know if you know the answer to
Yeah.
this, but like, what made what made him different than his siblings? Like,
Well, I don't
why
know that
was
he
he
was
like that?
different. I don't know that he was different. He
Well,
was
I don't mean different
first.
in a
He
bit.
was
Okay,
oldest.
okay, okay. Oldest, sure, sure.
So it's they're not different. He inspired and stretched them in so many ways. In fact,
True.
my niece, when she spoke, because she's only 16 months younger, she talked about like she's like, there's the thing about Nepo babies, but Nepo siblings. She's like, I think it's a really great thing to be because yes, people expected a lot from you, but they also believed in a lot from you because of like the trail he left. They
Oh, I
believed they were
love
capable
that.
of anything. Yeah.
That's really interesting because I have a good friend, you know her as well, Genevieve, whose kids are sort of that, and
Mm.
Matthew comes through, and then Vivian's Matthew's sister, and then Cynthia's Vivian's sister. But in the whole of the three of them, yeah, they were able to live up to each other's the expectations that teachers had of them based on their previous siblings. So that's Nepo siblings. That's awesome. I love that. Okay.
It was
So
super
good.
cute.
I think you
Yeah.
might be right though. Maybe that is it. It's the first child who just is like, I'm doing this. And then he got to inspire them as well. That's awesome. I love all the videos you have sent. He does seem like he was a firecracker from the minute he was born, which is awesome.
Yes, he was. He was really, really wily, like studied people, loved learning, was curious about everything. And yeah, he had very charming ways of figuring stuff out.
I love that. Well, okay, so here when you say he didn't have any limiting beliefs, or at least he didn't present them and live this sort of why not life. I mean, that is freedom almost incarnate, right?
Mm.
Freedom is the key to living fully, and you and I have been discussing this a lot offline. Um, I again, while I'm not trying to make this political, I mean, the reality of the world for a while now has been anger first.
Mhm.
And it sometimes it's on one side, sometimes it's on the other. I had a lot of anger. We both did. That's why we've been discussing this a lot. But Timothy Snyder's book on freedom, which we both loved on tyranny first and now on freedom, he says we can't be free when we're angry. And you sent me actually a little interview where he said that. And that literally, it was like a lightning bolt hit me because I was so angry in those first days, really even up to the election. I was feeling a lot of anger. And I realized that is, he said in the clip you sent me something along the lines of when you're angry, like the person you're angry at is holding you down. It's kind of like what we've talked about sometimes with forgiveness. If you're not forgiving somebody, they're holding the
Right.
reins, right? The same thing is true with
So,
anger.
as they say, it's like drinking poison, expecting the other person to
To
die or
die. Yeah,
something. Yeah.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly right. And again, I don't want to belabor a point, but when VP Harris got into the race And there was such joy around her entrance, her nomination. I was feeling that, I was, and it felt so great. And that did feel like freedom, and so the song being from Beyonce being freedom, like I was feeling all of that. And then it so quickly flipped to anger right after. And I was also feeling all of that. And it does feel heavy. And it feels like I've got literal cement blocks on my back holding me down. And when you sent me that clip of him saying this, it was like, I thought, oh yeah, you know what? And I just took those blocks right off my shoulders. And I thought, fuck that noise. I'm not doing it anymore. And it doesn't mean I don't feel hopeless. Again, I feel a lot of actual freedom in my hopelessness because I have nothing to expect to go well. So there's freedom in that.
No
Um,
fucks left.
I thought I had no fucks left. I have less than I thought. But yeah, I think life happens when we let go of some things, even if it's just letting go a little bit at a time, when you can let go of something, something else can come in. We've talked about this time and time again in season 2. When you let go of something, something better gets to come in that space.
I was just thinking that interview was with Sharon McMahon, who we both love.
Mm,
She's
that's right.
is
Yes.
like a civics or history teacher, and even though a lot of people don't think she's neutral, she literally just shares facts.
Yeah.
And
Facts are
uh,
neutral.
this is a hey, we do this all the time, and you're going to hear it in real time. Let's put this down as a topic. Like, what are we going to agree are facts anymore? That's a good
Mm,
topic because that is a huge issue that's dividing this country. But another thing I saw that also hit me was her because we get angry because we activate and we are
mm,
activists and we want to be very very upfront about what we care about and what we think is important in the world. Not just because it affects us. I'm a white woman with 3 white boys. We're gonna actually be fine and safe, but are we? Because we're living in a place that's not aligned. We're living in a time where a lot of things aren't aligned with the things that we care about. So which she said was outrage is an activism, and that also like your response to that was my response to this was like, okay, that's true. I do not need to yell about everything. I don't need to fight about everything. I need to take a beat, take a breath, take care of myself and activate. That's where freedom is. And that's where like I live fully when I'm activated. We talked about our values at the retreat, and the value of mine is justice. It's a value of yours, and
yep.
I can live fully when I have energy for that. But when I'm mad, it blocks it all. So yeah.
Well, and just to bop in about anger, with my human design as a
Mm.
manifester, and if I am out of alignment when I'm angry, and I'm in alignment when I'm peace. And it was very fascinating because I thought I was going to stay in anger much longer. I just assumed I was going to be angry for the next 4+ years. And there was something in my brain going, but your design, you can't, that you're out of alignment if you're angry. And I was literally having this little, for those of you who don't have inner dialogues, I have a very very vocal inner dialogue. And so I was having this dialogue in my head of like, you're out of
Like
alignment if, yeah, you're out of alignment if you're angry. And my anger was like, yeah, well, fuck you. And so again, that when I heard that, it was like, oh, that's right, this is why I can't be in anger, because that I'm not in alignment with my human design. I need to be in peace, or I will not be able to affect any change.
right. And that's hard to do. And we just talked about anger, but stress,
Yep.
fear, and those don't even have to be from world events. They could be from what you're dealing with internally with your family or with your health or, with your job or with your relationship. So those
Yeah.
are all blockers to living fully. And a lot of what we do in our coaching and in our retreats and our work with women is all about like, what what do you have control over? What can you change about your life? Because you can't come, I can't tell you how many times this has happened, and I know this is true for you, where people come into a coaching call and they really want you to change things about other people in their life. like
Oh yeah.
like their spouse, their daughter, their coworker, their boss, whatever. And we're like, can't
Yep.
change any of that. But we can totally shift how we can. You talk about this all the time. Like, you help people fall in love with their life, you help empower them so they can like shift into the choices they do have. There's
Yep.
victiming in this work, like when you're ready to, kind of push past these things are going to exist. How do, and we are proof of it in the last 2 years. When we started
Yeah.
this podcast, we were like, woohoo, we're going to show you how to fun. And then shit kept coming. And we have persevered and held each other up and figured out how to, within that, what do you have control over? What can you let in? What can you keep out? And, like, how can you keep fueling the life to the fullest? That doesn't mean every day is sunshine. It means that you're, fully letting yourself be you in your whole humanity. And I do think that I have a lot of empathy and relatability to letting these things weigh you down. We came in to do this today. I'm having like, well, we as a family are having a rough week for Griffin. He had such a great weekend, and it just never, you can never see these things coming where all of a sudden seizures will take him out for 2 days. Hard to talk about living your life fully when I see him not able to do that because of something he can't control. So it's not that we're without that. It's that
Right.
there is actually a way to feel free no matter what.
I was laughing because I always laugh about our vision for this, that we were going to show you how to be sexy. Oh, we're
That,
so,
that wasn't the only word, but yes, like
I know,
live
but
your best life, feel dynamic and
that's
sexy.
the one
That's
though that makes
so
me
funny.
laugh, because I think we've lived up to all the rest of it. But I want to shift that and say, if you are being your authentic self, if you are not um falling prey to your limiting beliefs or how somebody else is telling you you are limited, right? Like, I am sure
Right.
Stephen was told left and right, you can't do that, you can't do that, you're too young, blah 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 blah. And he was just, I picture him like a little, like a cartoon superhero. Every time somebody said no, he just like punched the wall and punched it that way.
Like,
And so if
why
you,
not?
right, and so if you do, yes, why not? Like, that could be, it could have been his little like superhero mantra, like, why not, why not, why not? But if you are living your life authentically, if you're not falling prey to the stories you're telling yourself or somebody else is telling themselves, if you're finding joy in the little moments, you are sexy. That is sexy,
Mhm.
you know? So even though I laugh
Yeah.
at us saying that in the first, I think ultimately we are proving
Well,
that to
I
be
think
true.
confidence feels sexy. And I think we talked about
Totally.
feeling like you're gonna feel whatever your definition of sexy is, like hopefully it feels present, it feels embodied.
Yes.
And you're gonna feel that way when you allow yourself to be authentic. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we were after. And then we laughed at ourselves because we do that pretty easily because you weren't walking very well. I can like live my we had so many things. We were like, living your best life.
So
But
sexy.
yeah, but we are
With my cane.
persevering because we believe in this. And
Well,
yeah, and you
yeah.
are also really bouncy now. So
I am very bouncy now. Yeah. No, I think that's it. I think I've always been an optimist. I've always tried to be authentic, but also try to find the joy in most things. And so that, again, getting out of the anger and being like, again, I say that, I already said it, but it was sort of this, I woke up and thought, fuck this noise. I am not going to let the new regime steal my joy, steal my
mhm.
happiness. Um, and that's just me, right? Like, you all can get there whenever you get there, but it's really important for me moving forward, not only for us with this pod, but for me as in my private coaching practice, and certainly in the retreats, to make sure that women are not pretending like everything's fine per se, but they are finding ways to be fine in this, right? And to
Right.
find joy and to find peace and satisfaction. I'm trying to think of all the different things in human design. Um, Sometimes we're still going to be angry, and that's okay. This is not about spiritually bypassing. We feel your
Well,
emotions,
I'm a
but
big believer that allowing anger, because anger
yes.
is it's a really helpful emotion. Allowing anger, allowing any negative emotion will allow you to experience all your positive ones more deeply because
Yes.
when you try to suppress any, you suppress them all. And I think one thing I learned too is like joy doesn't require big shiny moments. It doesn't require graduations and promotions. Sometimes if I think like this is another topic probably, but I think sometimes those are like even almost too much. You know what I mean? Like there's too much
Yeah.
going on and you like have all this
And
feeling
high
of I should feel
expectations.
high
Hmm.
expectations.
Yep.
It's actually it's like the everyday stuff. And like not to belabor my nephew, but like his photos, his photographs of like just the simplest beauty in like creatures or sunsets or views or waterfalls are beautiful. Like he did, I kind of thought he had a Wes Anderson look to some of his photography and the things he would frame. Like, oh, like just finding it in the like in a meal or some, colorful leaves because it's beautiful fall here still right now. Or, even you, like when you're so good at when you're out, like having your pool time at like telling me that the funny things or the pretty things or just like what you're enjoying. And you're super appreciative that you are somewhere in sometimes January where you can sit outside and get sun. So it's literally finding the like it's not just like being positive and being grateful. It's literally saying I am choosing to like give more of my attention to any of the positive things that are giving me joy and helping me enjoy this day to the fullest. And one thing I may have shared this before, and I apologize to you and listeners if I have, but we once, when I was doing retreats way back, in Kauai with my retreat partner Sam. Tell you this already. We I think we were in contact when there was like a Category 5 hurricane, or were we not? I can't remember. That was headed towards um, the island of Kauai at the last minute, right before people were landing for this
Oh,
retreat, and we were like,
geez.
"Oh shit!" And so we had to change a lot of things on our itinerary because they weren't going to be safe and they were outdoors. And we luckily kind of like got someone in to do sound bath, and we found this beautiful Hindu temple that's like just in the jungle in the mountains there. And we got to go there and like tour this beautiful, beautiful grounds and meet people there and like sit with one of their, I don't know what you call them, I can't remember, but it was someone at the ashram, like a teacher. And he was sharing a story of one of the like founders of this particular temple, and that the story that one had of enlightenment and presence was as a child being really nervous about seeing the one TV show he could that was some cowboy show, and he thought for sure, and he was like lived in another country, I think he lived in India, so they got like this one channel once a week, this like for this 1 hour, and he thought he was going to miss it, and he started to lose his shit and like have a panic attack and a tantrum. He was maybe 6, and in the midst of that on his own, like literally put his hand on his body and like, what am I upset about? Like I'm literally fine right now. Like I'm completely fine. I don't know,
Uh,
like why, like, he just had this revelation that like he lived through, and it like really brought him into the teaching in the world that he was in. And
that's
it
awesome.
was the exact right message everyone at our retreat needed to hear. Was like, if we focus on the things that we can't do, like the hikes out to the waterfalls or the things that, are getting, then it sucks. If we're worried about this hurricane coming and hurting us, we're not in the moment. But when we can be like, oh my God, we're fine. We're in a beautiful place. We're breathing, we're eating, we're laughing. Like it's absolutely beautiful and perfect in this moment. And I that comes to me on this topic around like you have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, the word that keeps coming to me as I'm listening to you, I think you told me that story because we were having those problems in Laguna, getting people
Oh
there with
yeah.
that's so I don't think we've talked about it here, but that's what I think you told me about.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to, because we had to do a lot of shifting at the Laguna one as well, is presence, right? I mean, there's something about living your life fully where, yeah, there's some plans need to be made, right? Like you need to make some plans if you want to do some traveling or you want to write a book or whatever. What, as you're listening to this pod, if there's something that keeps coming to your brain, like for me to live fully, I would want to blah, right? That's probably not something you can do tomorrow. But in the process of doing that thing, if you're always staying present, I'll never forget when I first worked with Marie Jefferson Jones, who we had on earlier in the season, the Girl's Guide to Dating Herself. Um, we were working together. I was a health coach at the time. And I remember when we had our very first session and we were doing the sort of why beneath the why. I think it was her first session, but anyways, early on, she declared that what she wanted to do as she got healthier was enjoy every moment of getting healthier. She didn't want to just look at the end game and say, I won't feel happy, I won't feel this, I won't feel joy until I'm this number on the scale or whatever it might have been. I want to enjoy every moment on that way, on that journey, so to speak. And I just remember being, I think that might have been the minute I fell in love with her because I was like, yes, that's it.
Mm,
Because as you live your life fully, yeah, again, it's the little quiet moments that bring the joy that feel delicious. Yes, the big
mhm.
shiny moments are great, and especially if there's a big celebration and there isn't a lot of stress around it. Um, but making sure that you're present, it's one of the reasons I decided, as you know, I'm not watching anything. I am not watching any news.
Yeah.
I don't care what's about to happen. I mean, I care, but I don't care what's going to happen in 2025 because I can't affect that. All I can affect is what's happening in my life and my friends and my family and my loved ones. And so I'm just very clear and determined to be super present every single day because in that presence, I also get resourced. If I am
Yeah.
looking backwards or if I'm constantly looking backwards and I'm constantly worried about forwards, I am not focusing on what is good right now.
Mm. You know what's uh, okay, I want to not move on from that very quickly because that's huge, and that is the biggest piece that we talk about a lot. They say depression is living in the past. They say anxiety is living in the future and responding to it. God bless the people who go between both because a lot of humans do, and
Yep.
it's understandable
Yep.
with all this stuff getting in and like just all the attack people are under from information and influence. Um, and it just two things were occurring to me. One was I love doing a retreat with somebody and not on my own because it gave us turns to totally be present and like really drop into what was happening for people and then offer each
Yes.
other that support and like take turns doing that. And I think that was just so valuable because I have done retreats on my own where like afterwards I'm like, God, I didn't really even get to experience it. I'm glad they had a good time. I delivered, but I didn't, like, and I think we've all had moments like that, in
Yeah.
our professional life where we're like, I'm glad it was good. I don't even remember it. So that's occurring to me. And the other thing that I was thinking about, and it brings up Stephen, but a lot of young people and a lot of people maybe our age, because we are still learning and living in the age of all this, Instagram stuff of, we always are like, oh, people's highlight reels that, there's a lot of temptation to make your life look a certain way and to feel like your life should be a certain way. And I did worry about that with like that younger generation and
Yeah.
including Steven. I worried about that. Like it was more important for him to get these photos. And he really absolutely, it became probably the most perfect example I know of somebody who was like, who sought out the depth behind those photos, right? Like
Mm.
sought out the connection and the depth. Yes, he had a very like high standard and almost perfectionism on like the shots he wanted to get and how he wanted to portray, but it literally came from desperately wanting to share and dispel stereotypes people might have of some of these far off places because I haven't said here, but like as I mean he wasn't going, he was like in Iraq and Uzbekistan and Uruguay and off the beaten path in Argentina, off the beaten path in Chile, like went to visit his sister in Brazil, but they went to like the northernmost place where like there's almost no humans. It's all just sandbars and they had to take like multiple modes of transportation, including horses to get there. So he really, it was really important to him to not just connect people to those things and dispel their stereotypes, but to like meet people there and tell their stories and take breathtaking photos, yes, and not just to say I was here, but to say you should go there. And in fact, the YouTube, I'm sorry, TikTok, he had started was like places you should go, and he was
Mm.
like teaching people how to go places and to know that they were not just safe but welcoming. And that to me is like a great example of like don't just live life so that it looks like delicious, like actually make it so, right?
Yeah.
And and then along the way, he just like probably longer ago than I even realized, because he was always this way with us, but like really grew into someone who, no matter how far and wide and often he was traveling, his connections with people were the most important. Some person, a friend of he and my nieces told me he was the one person who always picked up. I'm like, that's remarkable. He was
Mm,
traveling all the time. He was off the grid, and he was like the person people could count on to stay connected. And so again, that's about like what's important to you. Maybe all those
yeah.
things aren't important to you, but whatever is, feel like it's not about what you're presenting, it's what you're experiencing.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no, I love that. And this for your clarity, as far as I'm concerned, this pod is absolutely an honor, Stephen. This is the whole
I
reason
know,
we're
I know.
having this conversation. So I want him woven into all of this. I'm so and
Yeah, I know.
I because you've shared all of this with me, but I want our listeners to hear all about this because he is and we'll put some pictures up and so forth on social media so you can see who we're talking about over the course of this week.
Yeah.
So what happens? What keeps us from living life deliciously? What keeps us from going after what we really want? Um, Happiness prevention is this prevention magazine, I guess? No.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
prevention.com. Sorry, it says happiness is not something ready made. It comes from your own actions. So sometimes it's fear or this idea we're not ready or it's not the right time. That cracks me up because the idea of it ready made, that's such a 60s, like in a little box. You
Mhm.
just open the box. Ooh, here's happiness. Like, no, it is,
Just add water.
yeah, just add wine, which sometimes helps. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, happiness is a verb, right? Like this, we have to be intentional. So as you listen to this and you think about what you want to be true for you in 2025, the excuses or the obstacles that you see in front of you, like our challenge, our call to action is think about it in a different way. Yeah, absolutely. There may be some logistical things, there might be some timing things, but if you want something bad enough, you and I both know from all of our work with clients and students and people who want to come to the retreats or can't come to the retreats, like if you want something bad enough, you will figure out a way to make it happen.
That's true. That's true. You will make time for the things that are important to you. And often if you don't feel like that's true, it's probably because you're not really getting real with what you deeply desire, right? So if you feel like, oh, that's not true, I never have time for these things, well, there might be something that's like, that you're believing that's not letting you. But
Or
truly,
maybe
if
you
you
haven't
got down to
connected, sorry, maybe you haven't
no, no,
connected to the why. I mean, we just talked about
yeah,
this, right? Like maybe that's the first step is I want this. Why do I want this? The answer. Well, why do I want that? Well, why do I want that? I mean, that's one of the first things you and I do with brand new clients is to really get when they have a goal. If it's just that surface level goal, it's harder to make that happen when you don't understand the why beneath the why.
that's true. My son Peter said Stephen was just about he was just about it, whatever he was into, whatever. And so when you're
Love
about
that.
something, you really kind of make it happen, right? Like
Yeah. Why not?
so I know that's true. I actually, when Peter said that, I was thinking of you. I'm like, Lisa's that way. She'll be really about the things that she's about, and it's on brand. Um, this is hard, right? Like it's hard. We know this is hard. It's hard to break patterns, especially when it's fueled by caring. And my greatest
Mm,
example of this was, if you recall, last year when Maui had that tragic, horrific fire. I I don't know that I was consciously aware of this, but I think subconsciously I got into such a dark place of I can't look away from the news. I have to read everything. I have to know everything. Otherwise, like I'm turning my back on their suffering, right? Like
mm,
and I there was just that's just one example of many things. But like when it's fueled by caring, we can play this game with ourselves and be like, well, you can't be happy, you can't live life fully
mm,
because other people can't, or because you needed things to be a certain way, or because somebody you love is suffering. that doesn't help anybody. Like for
Right.
me to not live fully because Griffin can't doesn't help Griffin ever.
Correct.
Like
Yep.
my suffering will never ever help him. In fact, the opposite is true. If I'm off, it doesn't help him feel,
Right.
like as safe and grounded to like pursue all the ways that he just blows us away with all his, dynamic energy and drive. So I get that it's hard. We both do. The most effective thing you can try is, like shifting something, when it's negativity because of stuff happening in the world, for example. Lisa and I have different ways that we unplug from it, but we both do. And we both know, like, this is the shit I don't want to even pay attention to, or this is the stuff that I'm not going to let in. And this is how I'm going to respond to it. You can just try it. All of our kids have been like, I took all of it off my phone and
Yep.
I just was infinitely happier for a couple of weeks. Doesn't mean they don't come back to it and do it over and over again. At least my
Right.
kids, but they definitely know the difference and they prove to themselves they can control it.
Yes.
And it does give them a lot more ability to see that they have the power to choose. So I think it can start small and simple. Like, okay, I'm starting to like get that limiting, feeling, that doom feeling. What about a breath? What about putting on a
Mm.
song? What about just stepping outside and having like sunshine on your face? Art of any kind, really. Um, I don't know. I just like I don't want to define it for other people, but I definitely think in the darkest of moments, you can, in most cases, I'm sure anyone listening could go, no, 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 I got a great example where this isn't possible. I'm sure there is. But I think there's a way you can capture a moment where you feel fully in your body and you can appreciate beauty or life.
Absolutely. And again, in that moment that you're like, no, I can't. Okay, great. But when you
Mhm.
can, I would even offer taking a moment and looking back at some beautiful things, right? So
Mhm.
maybe going and looking at some times that were fun, or so it's like when we talk about the critter brain and trying to prove to it that you have done these things before and been safe. Like I think that's it too, right? Like um if you can't think about what your next best step is to feel like you're living your life fully, look back on some times when you felt like you were, to remind yourself who the fuck you are and how, in fact, you can do that. I mean, this isn't,
Yeah.
you're right, this is hard, and fear will come in. This isn't about being fearless. This is about being willing to try, willing to
Mhm.
fail, willing to learn. It's like we've talked about with confidence. This isn't about having all your ducks in a row. This is about realizing, yeah, you might try something that feels like it's going to be the next thing that's going to make you feel like you're living your life deliciously, and you fall flat on your face. I was just watching, you and I were talking about this before. I was watching an episode of Sex and the City last night, the one where Carrie is a model and she
Oh
falls off
yeah.
and she
Fashion
falls.
roadkill.
Yep, fashion roadkill. So good. And she lays there. Heidi Klum steps over her, and the little inner monologue of Carrie is, I could lay here and be embarrassed, or I can get up like the regular person that I am, because that was the whole point. She was just there as a writer, not as an actual model, and walk down that. And she does. She gets up and she walks down the
She
runway.
sachets.
She
Yeah.
sashays. She does her little move. She high fives Heidi Klum and walks right back out to like a standing ovation, And so it's not that there's not going to be fear or challenges or obstacles, but it's about breaking through those little by little and being willing to grow.
Yeah. I just I just was listening to something that said fearless is not the same as brave. Fearless means you can do
Mm,
whatever. Brave is being afraid and doing it anyway, right?
absolutely.
And I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that it is brave to believe that, it's brave to believe that you can live fully no matter what. I
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was that I was listening to. This was years ago, but I remember it was like choosing to live a beautiful life no matter what will really test you, because you can think of a bunch of things, what like the worst case scenario that my family has lived through, and you can still choose, not just in their honor, but still choose to like live a beautiful life, especially because they inspired it, right? You can still choose it. Um, and that's hard.
I bet
It's
Stephen
hard.
was brave and not fearless. I mean, he
Oh, for
had
sure.
to
Yeah,
be.
so brave, so brave.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, like I just being the first one in his family to go off to a really tough college, and then like just all the ways he kind of broke barriers and went places that, and he did a lot of it alone.
Mm.
So he met amazing people along the way. 'Cause, I mean, people who met him stay in his life, but he really did have to figure out how to live the way he wanted to live. So yeah, very brave.
Love that. Um, part of this is being willing to love fully as well. You know,
Yeah,
um, I love
yeah.
that you said that Stephen was the person that always picked up the phone, he sounds like he had a ginormous heart as well. If and he was gay and he was out there in
Mhm.
these going to these countries that were not uh gay friendly by any stretch of the imagination, but he must have had such a sense of self and self-love that gave him that
Mhm.
bravery.
Yeah, he really was just fully himself. He was always from the day one the most loving child, the most expressive of love. Like he was never afraid to tell his friends he loved them. And he was like that with all his relationships with my mom, with, his partner when he had one, and with all of his friends. He was just, and it really mattered to him that
Mhm.
they knew he loved them. So yeah, you're right. I mean, like loving without holding back is another way to live deliciously,
Mhm.
especially because you don't know. You don't know. Like, I mean, I definitely hadn't had a live conversation with him in a long time. But he's great about messaging back and forth. And I was just sharing with someone else in our family, like, oh, that's so cool to know he picked up. We often were like, he's probably in a different time zone, and like those kind of things. But it's so neat and so wonderful. And he did all these, well, practically weekly, I think weekly FaceTimes with his siblings, and probably even more often than that, with them individually.
Mm.
And that's just full on love, but
Yeah.
also just, the I don't know in any of my personal experience, any of yours that I'm aware of, and definitely in the life of our clients, where like loving more and like loving more freely and openly and bigger was like ever anything someone regretted, even
Oh
if it
God,
didn't
no.
go the way they wanted, ever. So it's
Yeah.
like, if anything, and I think that that's just such an important lesson that we always hear, in that, like from people on their deathbeds, that we always hear about in certain books, and speakers have said, and certainly hospice nurses, nobody ever wishes they didn't share, like that they didn't share their feelings more. Like, they never say, oh, I wish I'd held back on that. If
Right.
anything, they have the opposite, like, I wish I'd expressed more love, more appreciation, more, just talked more, and showered the people I loved with more of my affection. That's just so often an end of life sentiment.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Um, Anything else you want to say before we move into our song?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, before we go into our closing thoughts, let's share the song for this episode. We talked about Taylor Swift because she was Steven's favorite. I gotta say, I am a big Tay Tay fan right now. Because Charlotte wasn't into her, I just didn't have that connection. But I will tell you, watching the talk about living your life fully and deliciously, watching these moms, I know you and I've talked about this, watching these moms and daughters go to the Eras
I
tour over
know,
the
and
last
some
2 years.
dads and daughters
Oh,
too.
absolutely. But I was so excited because, my family and friends are mostly in the Midwest. And so when she swung back around to Indy a couple of weeks, again, we're recording this far ahead, but in whatever, October. And I think that was her final stop on the Eras tour. And just watching again all of these friends and their daughters going. I had a client go. just brought me sheer joy. I love Taylor Swift in a way that I never have before. So,
Oh, same,
oh
same.
my
And
God.
Stephen got to see her in Stockholm
Oh,
last spring. I think
oh
March.
wow.
I don't know if it was March or May, but yeah. So it and that was epic for him.
I love that. Um, but apparently because I asked you and she was like, the favorite song he had of hers wasn't really about
All too
living
well.
fully. Yeah.
It's
So I was like, okay, maybe that doesn't work.
it's about a
Uh,
breakup, but yeah.
that's so
Well,
funny.
most of her songs
I
are.
was
I
gonna
mean,
say most. I think that's one of the things too, is like I listen to these songs and I'm like, shit, she does know. Like I just didn't, I don't know,
Mhm.
whatever. We could do a whole episode on Taylor Swift some other time.
We should. We
Anywho,
should.
yeah, we should. So we chose I Lived by One Republic. I also love One Republic so much. And there's a line in it that really speaks to what we're talking about. It says, I did it all. I did it all. I owned every second that this world could give. I saw so many places. Yeah, the things that I did. Yeah, with every broken bone, I swear I lived. And then this line, I hope you spend your days, but they all add up. And when that sun goes down, hope you raise your cup.
Mm, cheers.
So good.
That brings so much. I had you read these because I knew it would make me cry.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, don't cry, don't cry.
I
Yeah.
know. It's such a
Yeah.
beautiful reminder to like savor moments and live intentionally.
Mm,
And I remember somebody said, like, beautiful life is a string of days,
mm,
and it's like just enjoy your days. It's definitely not about the big moments. I think growing up, we thought it was supposed to be all about big moments. And, parenting has taught me parenting and just living. I mean, I'm going to be 56 before you and pretty soon. And I just keep thinking, like, I less and less a bucket list is important and more like I think I keep telling you I just love my mornings with my youngest so much, and he's going to be gone this time next year. Well, this time he'll be home for holidays hopefully, but he'll be gone this time next year, and I just feel so determined to just soak that in, all of it. Not because it's like I'm going to remember each conversation, but because it just fills my cup.
yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting because now that Charlotte is settled and happy at school, she came home a couple weeks ago and she was like, we were talking about the fact that her coming home now is so joy filled because it's like, we're not discussing everything that's going wrong. We're really discussing everything that's going right. And so, yeah, same thing. It's just like so nice. I'm not talking to her as much and I know that's because she's living her life deliciously. And so
Mm,
it's so nice. There's that loss for sure. Um, and
that's
we're
what
gonna
you want.
watch, it's what you want. You're gonna get to watch Miles live this amazing life like you do with
I
Peter
know.
and like you do with Griffin to the way he can, you know.
Yeah. And also,
I
you
mean,
just
some of the
reminded me by
pictures you
saying
send
that.
me of Griff are
They're so joyful.
amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. He is one of the most joy filled, like yeah, almost every day there's a moment where he is just so in the moment and like so deliciously savoring it, and it's amazing. And we are always amazed by that. In some of the darkest days we have laughed the hardest because of him and him just cracking us up.
It's awesome.
But the Charlotte thing makes me want to add something that we didn't have here and we don't have time to go into, but it's so important. Who you choose to be around has
Mm,
so much to do with it. And she
yep.
made a really bold, brave decision, supported by amazing parents, to shift her living situation.
Yeah.
And like, I can't let that go without saying, like, that's a big thing. If you're really having trouble with this whole topic, look at the company you're keeping, maybe.
Look at your environment, mentally, physically,
Yeah.
emotionally. Yeah, I mean that could be the first next best step is taking
Yeah.
that what we do in the coaching world of taking that step back and taking a bigger, wider view of if this feels like, oh, Lisa and Carrie are full of shit, okay, but also what would you like to live this way?
Yeah.
Would you like to live deliciously? You and I, again, our world is not unicorns and rainbows by any stretch of the imagination. But I think I'll shake off this mortal coil feeling like I've lived deliciously. Do
I was just
you?
thinking, mine is like, fluffy Havanese puppies and wine glasses. No, I'm just
Cheers.
kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. I definitely have both of those. But I no, I was actually, you just took the words out of my mouth because I was thinking, yes, this is the work we each do and feel passionately about with our clients. This is the work we can't turn, like this is what we're here to do, is really help women live like more authentically as themselves. And the reason we can do that is because we struggle, we understand it. We work on the same thing. We work on the same thing. And we're not necessarily saying we figured it out forever. We're saying like we have the tools, and
Yeah.
that's why it's important to us. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is one thing, if you're listening, that you can do today to live more fully? It doesn't have to be huge. In fact, I really don't want you to make it huge. I mean, if you quit your job and you're excited about us, let us know. That's exciting. But maybe it's just reaching out to someone you've been meaning to connect with and saying yes to something that excites you. I will say, I'm pretty sure my niece would have to confirm this for me, but I'm pretty sure some old friend of Steven's who showed up at his memorial service did go home and quit her job and decided to travel. And for anyone who's curious, he was a digital nomad. He did have a job that he figured out how he could do from anywhere, and that's what funded and fueled his ability to do the travel and the photography. But like
Wow.
the inspiration of the story of how he was living his life, at least one person went home and was like, fuck it.
Love
So
that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's great, and that's perfect for them, right? But
right.
yes, it might be what can you say yes to, and it might be say what it might be what can you say no to. What is, as you take that step back that we've just invited you to do, is there something currently in your life that is draining you? And that's the thing that looks like the obstacle or the challenge. So it's, again, living fully, living deliciously isn't about doing all the things. It's about doing what matters most and what lights you up. And of course, as always, we'd love to hear what that is. You can DM us on Instagram or our Facebook page. You can always email us at the things we know podcast23@gmail.com. We would love to hear it. Again, we're about to enter into season 3, and several of our topics that we have lined up have come from listener ideas. We listen, we read. If you're sharing comments on Spotify, we're reading those as well, and that has given us some food for thought for topics for season 3 as well. So please, 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 we want to hear you.
Definitely. So thank you for joining us today. And until next time, please take care of yourselves and keep asking, why not?
Why not? I love it. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.